I really didn't want to make an F-4J video. For those of you who have been waiting for this video, I apologize. I didn't want to make it simply because I don't like the F-4J. I didn't want to edit this thing, I didn't want to get the gameplay for this thing. I really don't want anything to do with the F-4J anymore. Why? I'm going to talk about it in this video. Now, first and foremost, the F-4J is not a bad plane. I just don't think that it's particularly the best, and I don't see a point in playing it over some of the other planes that I already have. However, if the F-4J is your plane, it's your only plane at 11.3, or maybe you just like it and you want a cool video on it, then look somewhere else, because this video is not going to be cool. It's actually going to be pretty bashful. It's going to be bashing the F-4J more than it is saying good things about it, but keep in mind that is only because I'm biased. I do not like the plane, and I'm going to be explaining why I don't like the plane. That is not to say it's a bad aircraft. I'd put it probably on the same level as the F-4E in effectiveness. Now, just because I put them on the same level of effectiveness does not mean that they're necessarily the same plane or fly the same way. It's really quite the opposite. They're not that close to the same play style, and that is actually why I like the F-4E much more than I like the F-4J. Not only do I find it more fun, but I am also more effective in it in my matches, just because the play style suits me much better. Now, starting off with the most obvious difference between the F-4E and the F-4J, the F-4J is currently the only plane in War Thunder that has access to the brand new AIM7F Sparrow. Now, this missile, you guys probably already know what it is. I'm late to the party, so I'll just do a quick rundown. It's got a very long burn time on the motor. It has significantly more range than anything else in the game, but it is a little bit slower than something like the E2 Sparrow or the R-24. And not over time, because like I said, it's got a very long burn time, so it's going to sustain a pretty decent speed for a very long time. However, the E2 and the R-24, when they're fired in their optimal ranges, are going to be much faster than the AIM7F Sparrow. I don't really like the AIM7F Sparrow. I find the E2 to be much more practical in probably 8 out of, if not 9 out of 10 situations in which you're going to be launching a Fox 1 missile in War Thunder. Now, in Sim, maybe another story. In the very large enduring confrontation maps, maybe another story. But for most of the games that you're going to get in ARB, and most of the situations in those games, I prefer the E2 or Skyflash missiles. We're going to get to why a little bit later, but moving on to the second thing that's noticeably different on the F-4J and the F-4E is that the F-4J has to have a gun pod. It does not have an internal Vulcan like the F-4E. On top of that, it doesn't have a Vulcan in general. The gun is completely different. It is a good gun. It's certainly not the worst 11.3 gun. It's actually amongst the best in my opinion. However, it's still no Vulcan, and nothing can replace a Vulcan. However, does it get the job done? Yes, but it is a gun pod. It's going to hamper your plane's performance pretty significantly, but it's better than the alternative, at least in my opinion, and that is not having a gun. The only problem with that is now the F-4J currently is pretty significantly less maneuverable than the F-4E, and this is only amplified when you carry the gun pod. The sluggishness of the F-4J is going to be pretty noticeable compared to the F-4E when you're running the gun pod. I mean, even when you're not running the gun pod now, it's a pretty obvious difference in performance, but since I do run the gun pod, it's going to make it a lot worse for me. We're going to go ahead and get into why I don't like the AIM7F, and first off, we're just going to talk about how easy it is to just simply dodge. The AIM7F is a big heavy missile with a very long burn time, but it does not travel very fast at any point during its flight, unlike the other Fox 1 missiles we have. What this means is that it has to pull a lot more lead than other missiles because it's simply not as fast. And as a result, it can be pretty easy to dodge. You see that FG, he dodges my AIM-7 pretty easily there. Granted, that maneuver that he just pulled is going to be able to dodge any Fox 1 missile fired at him, but it's only that much easier when it's an AIM-7F. He's able to get his nose back around on target and get a shot off. I dodge his missile with almost the same maneuver, but you get the point. Moving on to another example of why I don't like the AIM-7F is it just simply does not pull that lead at close ranges specifically. Now, it doesn't really pull that much lead easily in general, but when you're in close ranges, it's only more exaggerated and obvious. Now, I did manage to get a gun kill on that Viggen, but it was the end of the game, and I ended up dying anyways. Once again, we're not too far away on launch there. It's something that the E2 Sparrow could have easily done. The AIM7F just can't, and you're going to be noticing that a lot. There's a lot more things that the AIM7F can't do than the AIM7E2 can't do in relation to the AIM7F, if that makes sense. In other words, the AIM7E2 is once again more useful in 8 out of 10 situations. However, it is pretty satisfying when you get those certified AIM7F moments like you're going to see here. Damn near a 20-kilometer launch. I forget when exactly I launched it, but it's pretty far. What was that, 18 kilometers? Something that the AIM7E2 can't really dream of. I mean, maybe it could hit that shot if I was going a little bit faster, but I mean, pretty much forget about it. The AIM7E2 could never launch from this range. Look at that motor, still burning, just now burnt out all the way. And I am able to get a kill from that launch distance. Pretty insane, but at the same time, that Viggen really didn't try to maneuver at all. He didn't try to not die to that AIM7F, and as a result, I'm not very impressed by that. Most situations are not going to go that way. However, what I do want to look at here is just how awful the pulse Doppler is on this F-4J. Take a look at how long it took my radar to see that MiG-27 in pulse Doppler. Not only that, but I run ACM mode mostly when I use pulse Doppler, and well, this is what happens. This guy is flying straight towards me. I'm unable to get an ACM lock in pulse Doppler. Even though he was flying directly at me, my radar just tends to lock absolutely nothing. Same story here. Pulse Doppler, MiG-27 ACM. Now, it didn't really lock anything there, it just kind of locked onto the ground. You could say, well, maybe that's just because your teammate was in front. Well, yeah, maybe. But here we go, MiG-21, and we still are having a really hard time locking him. We finally get him, but I miss out on a kill because it took me so damn long to play with my radar. The pulse Doppler on this plane is definitely the worst of every pulse Doppler in the game, and you're going to be missing out on kills if you use ACM a lot like me, but you're going to be missing out on kills in general just because the radar is that bad. You're going to be fiddling with it a lot, and as a result, you might end up dying a lot more while you're trying to figure out your radar than you otherwise would. However, there is one other thing that I don't like about this plane, and it's going to be pretty apparent at the end of this clip. Side note, perfect reason why to run guns there. I have a guy locked up, I have a missile in the air right now, but that's not going to stop me from being able to capitalize on opportunities presented to me because I am carrying the gun pod. If you don't carry gun pods, I highly recommend it. Try to change your mind, be a little open-minded to it. Unfortunately, that's the reason right there. The F-4J, I was just straight up using mouse input there. However, the slightest -G at high speeds on the F-4J makes the wings just, they're gone. And it's something more apparent on the F-4J than any other Phantom in the game. I'm not sure why. None of them really like -G rolling, but the F-4J is specifically very weak to -G maneuvering. Now again, the F-4J is not necessarily a bad plane. It is capable of being an effective aircraft in 11.3. This is exactly the kind of stuff that wins games here in 11.3. Look at the time it takes from the moment that I engaged that furball, racked up 3 kills with Fox 1 missiles and head-ons, and now just count down to when we win the game. If you can make high impact plays at any point in a match like that, killing 3 people in the span of maybe 20 seconds is pretty much a game changer for any team. If your team loses 3 to 4 people in about 30 seconds without taking any losses from it, you can pretty much count your game as a loss at that point. Same thing with your team. If you guys manage to wipe out a significant number of players like that without taking any losses in a very short amount of time, it's pretty much GG. And it doesn't even matter what you're taking out necessarily, anything helps, because the less planes there are on the enemy team, the more the more teammates there are going to be focusing what is left, because they're going to be less spread out, they're not going to have as many targets distracting them, and they're going to be all attacking kind of the same targets at the same time, and there's really no coming back from that as the enemy team at that point. So in a situation like that, yeah, the F-4J can absolutely still be successful, even when carrying AIM7Fs. However, I do find the E2 Sparrows a little bit more effective, and when I am actually trying to do really well in the F-4J, I am going to be carrying E2 Sparrows. Here we go. We have an FG locked up pretty high altitude, and we're still going to end up waiting a little bit longer. He manages to chaff that one. I didn't think that would track, so I go ahead and just switch targets, launch another Sky Flash at this J35, I think it is, and somehow my first missile just completely switches targets from what it was originally locked onto. I had even broken my radar lock entirely, and yet my first Sky Flash somehow ended up tracking that J35. Just goes to show you how laughably unrealistic the missile to radar to chaff relationship is in this game. But you know what, I'm not complaining. I got a free kill from it. We had a very poor launch on that MiG-21 there. Not sure why I pulled the trigger on that. A little too ambitious, and as a result, I am going to waste a Sky Flash. Unfortunately, ACM makes me lock a teammate. Wouldn't have really mattered anyways, because that Phantom in front of me is kind of smart. He pre-chaffs. I kind of get denied a lock for pretty much the entire time. I end up trying to shoot him with a missile, and once again, another great reason to bring guns. You saw that Phantom render my entire arsenal completely useless just by tapping a key. So it is a great idea to have a gun when you can for situations like that. I wouldn't have been able to kill him there if I hadn't had a gun. He'd have still been running rampant and being a threat to my team. Since I had a gun, I was able to dispose of another threat and help my team out that way. Now, I do have the E2s, so I am very comfortable launching in a head-on within 3 kilometers like that. I can even be comfortable launching an E2 within 2.5 kilometers in a head-on. That's something that the AIM7F simply cannot do, because if the target starts to pull a little bit, the AIM7F just isn't going to be able to pull the lead in time. It's too slow, it's going to have to pull too much lead, and it's not going to get to the target. At this point, we pretty much have enemies all around us in every direction, so I'm just going to have to stick to one flank and commit to that flank. If I just kind of wait for them to collapse on me, then I'm going to be at an even greater disadvantage, so I choose to try to help the flank that a teammate seems to be struggling in. Unfortunately, I don't get to him in time. The F-4J easily flares my AIM-9G, and now I am in a pretty poor situation. However, I do have a gun pod once again, and I'm able to kind of fight my way out of it with the guns in close range, something that I wouldn't have been able to do there without having a gun pod. You're going to kind of notice a theme on my channel about the gun pods, and it's not going anywhere. However, the F-4J does manage to get a missile off. Not sure if it was going for me. It does look like it's going for me. That is a hopeless missile launch, though. He's way too far, and now I'm just watching for the Viggens missile launch. If he launches one, I'm going to be able to very comfortably avoid him. However, I wait for my teammate to kind of get him off me. Once I notice that he started to turn around, I turn around too. Queue up an AIM-9G, get it locked on, and we're within 3 kilometers. We both made a 180. He's pretty slow, so I'm pretty confident that AIM-9G is going to make it to the target. And it certainly does. We're able to get a nice AIM-9G kill, and that leaves just 2 guys left, and only one of them spotted. So I'm going to presume that the other one is probably down at his airfield right now, and now I'm feeling a lot more comfortable about the situation here. We have taken the advantage just like that. Now, there are 2 guys left, but this is the last one that I'm actually going to be able to interact with this game. I'm just going to shoot a couple missiles at him, close the distance. The closure rate is pretty high, so I know I can get some pretty long-range kills in with these AIM-9Gs. He flares. I end up getting a gun kill. It looked like maybe his engine was out. Nonetheless, he shot at my teammate, so he had to go. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed the video on the F-4J. Hope you learned something from the video. Most importantly, I hope I'll see you in the next one. See ya.